Hello and welcome. Today we'll be talking about the Yaesu FT1D or the FT1XD, which is a later model of the FT1D with an improved Aprs model. This is a dual band ham radio made by Yaesu, and it also features a GPS module inside of it with Aprs capabilities. It's IPX4 rated, and it has wideband reception from 0.5 MHz to 999 MHz, minus the cellular band version. It's a pretty good, decent all-in-one package radio, and it's one of the most used radios in my collection, and it has been out in the trails before, and it's pretty rugged, even given its IPX4 rain weatherproof rating. Works fairly well. It features a SD card port for saving memory and transferring memory, amongst other FT1Ds, which makes it a pretty convenient radio to have and use in the field without having to have a computer to program and operate other radios with. Here on the table we have 4 different radios with Aprs capabilities. We have the Yaesu VX8DR with the microphone and GPS module. We have the Yaesu FT1D. Then we have the Yaesu FT1XD. And then we have the Elinco DJ-MD5. And this is the GPS enabled module 1. So all these radios do APRS, and that's a size comparison. We'll be talking about the FT1D mostly, and some of the upgrades on the FT1XD. Here we can see the FT1D and the FT1XD. Now the difference between these two was that this later release helped with the GPS module inside of it, and they changed the battery that came with it to a different type of battery with an extended battery life. We have the default antenna that this comes with, and then I have an SMA to BNC adapter here with an aftermarket antenna on the FT1D. This is my daily EDC radio right now, and it works pretty well. So I did mention before that these radios do Aprs, APRS. They also do digital modes, and the digital mode is C4FM. And the C4FM is an interesting mode where it's basically Yaesu's fusion. And let's go over the digital mode real quick right here. We have the DX button here on each one of them, and that changes the mode in the bottom right. And the bar is sort of like an automatic detector for the digital mode if you want the AMS on. So let's go ahead and switch this to DN and DN. That's going to give you your narrow digital mode with the Yaesu. Let's go ahead and transmit real quick here, and we'll turn up the volume just so you can hear a little bit. And you'll notice when I transmit, we'll be able to see our call sign here. KC2BNW portable testing. Now let's get on the right frequency here. KC2BNW portable testing. Now you notice there's a delay there, and that's due to the digital signal processing with the radios. So there is going to be a delay, and it does sound a little bit robotic because it's a narrow bandwidth. But you can also do voice wide, so you can change that to a wider gradient here, VW, and it should come across VW on here since it's automatically tracking. KC2 B&W portable testing. So as you see, this automatically switched from DN to VW with that bar there. That's what that bar means in the option. Now let's go over the radio, jumping from the digital point here. On the side here we have the PTT, monitor call, tone call, volume, and lock key and the power button. Front is the DTMF keypad with the options. The side here we have the mic, speaker, the external DC, the data port, and the micro SD card slot. And then on the top we have the rotary encoder knob and the SMA port for the radio. And then on the back we have the battery here and lanyard hold. And that's pretty much the whole radio. So going back to the digital, the original one had an issue where it would take some time to pick up the signal, especially if it wasn't FM, the automatic tracking. If that said FM, for example, if we go to FM here, it'll be a little bit noisy, so let me turn this down here. And we'll go to FM here. KC2 B&W portable testing. 1, 2. So as you can hear with the FM portion, it is pretty much non-delayed. I'll do it again one more time. KC2BW portable testing 1, 2. So there's no delay there. There's no processing, basically, that's going into the radio. And I'm going to mute that so it doesn't squelch up on us while we're talking. That's what's nice about this. You can actually mute the radio if you don't want to hear it for a moment. But going back to the FT1D, it's a dual band radio. So it does 2 meter, and as you've seen before, 70 centimeter. So it does that. And we also have the Aprs frequencies on here, and you can do wideband receiving on here. So let's do a little bit of wideband receiving with the FT1D for a moment and take this out here. So let's go ahead and push VM, and then we can type in our frequency 00077. It's a little loud, but this is your AM broadcast receiving. It's got an AM bar inside of it. And if we push band here, we get FM receive.
Be the trusted driver who gets kids to school safely each day. No experience? No problem. They offer paid training to help you earn your commercial driver's license. And they'll even give you a $1,500 signing. Trump is a threat to that Constitution. I don't agree. I think he's end up at 7.1 trillion. It's totally inadequate. It sounds like a big number. We're going to cut $1.5 trillion over 10 years.
And that's AM, and it receives pretty good. It's got a nice sound to the speaker. It's one of my favorite speakers to listen to on a ham radio. It's got a little bit of a bass to it, which is quite nice. Not that much, but it's there. It's noticeable compared to other speakers, which I like. Okay, let's go to back to home frequency here, and let's go ahead and do the weather frequency, because this does weather reception. So function and then receiver, and we have the weather frequency here. I'm going to try to up the volume and try to get a reception here. It looks like it's not receiving at the moment, but this can receive weather frequencies as well. So the note on the reception here is that it does broadcast bands, does weather frequencies. It can receive marine channels, auxiliary fire channels, things like that. It's quite useful in that regard as a emergency radio and as a transceiver as well. We'll do a little bit of demonstration later on outdoors, as my recording equipment here does not work well with transceivers here and can get shut down from the RF noise, unfortunately. But we can do that, and we can show the Aprs working outdoors, which is quite nice.
This is KC2BW portable testing voice-wide. As you can see on the screen there, I set it up to show the marker or the digital indicator showing where I'm transmitting from. The arrow changes positions and records the distance, and you can set it up to point 2 at the source or point to north. Plenty of different options to figure out and customize to your liking, which is quite nice with this digital mode. We're in voice wide mode right now, so what that means is we can't send information to the radio, unlike in DN mode, which is a narrower bandwidth, but it also allows for information to be sent over, such as potentially pictures and other information. There's an accessory to get for this radio. It's got a digital camera on it, and you can use that to send pictures to the FT2DR and probably the newer models as well. This model can't receive pictures, obviously, but it can transmit images on the air radio to radio in a low resolution format, which is quite nice. KC2BW portable testing 1 2 1 2. KC2BW portable testing 1 2 1 2 testing. KC2BW portable testing 1 2. KC2BW portable, all clear. KC2BW portable testing 500 milliwatts.
So as you can see, it transmits pretty good on the stock antenna and at 500 milliwatts and receives pretty well. Let's go ahead and show the APRS demonstration here in a moment. Okay, we're going to do a demonstration of the APRS system here. We have A and B active. The APRS works on the B band only when you engage the modem. We're receiving APRS data right now on our frequency. So if we go to hold down that button and then switch to B mode, that's our APRS frequency. Function 0 will bring up our call list, station list. As you can see, we're receiving data, and these are all the stations we're receiving right now. To transmit a beacon out, you push 9 in this mode and transmits out. And you can see a variety of digitrepeaters and my call sign getting back to me, meaning it made it to one station. Doesn't mean it made it to the I gate or the repeater, but some digitrepeater found it and then transmitted it back to me. So that's how you beacon out. If you also want to beacon out when you're outside of that screen, function and then 9, and that will also beacon out. You can do it a couple times if you want. Also, you can do band to change your smart station at the top left there. You can turn it off. You can have it smart beacon or by interval. So you have different options to customize your APRS usage of the FT1D. Now that's a small bit on the APRS, how it works. The GPS is working on top of here. To check it if it's working, hold down display, get into the set menu, go into display here, and you should be able to find GPS info, enter, and that'll give you a list of all the satellites you're locked into. And that's the gist of the GPS module and the APRS beaconing. What's nice about the Yaesu FT1D and the XD is that we have a variety of information on here on the screen. You can have a different setup, but I like to have the name of the frequency that I'm on and also the PL tone if it's a repeater, and the frequency number and the channel number, memory recall on the top left up there. I also have the DC voltage remaining and the time as well, the tone, and if it's plus or minus, the mode that we're in, which is important on the bottom right here, and then on this side, which type of radio we're using, the A or the B radio here, and the power output, which is quite nice as well. So there's quite a few things on the screen going on, which is quite nice to have with this radio. It's really convenient to have a ham radio when you can see that both the frequency, the channel bank number, and a alphanumeric coding underneath, so you can label it and properly identify which frequency you're transmitting on. And that's what I like about the FT1D. Now, I typically carry this radio on the trail, and I set it to both A and B functions. So let's go ahead and volume down. You can have both receiving and sending. You can have both of these frequencies on at the same time, listening to either or, and you can also listen to the radio as well. There's a function called AF Dual, and you can listen to both the radio and the normal frequencies here. So if I get to a quiet frequency, so there you go. There's the radio, the A band, and the B band. So this is an A radio and a B radio. Now the A radio, and it's a little bit more sensitive than the B radio, and that's done on purpose. So it's basically 2 radios in here, 3 if you want to count the broadcast band radio, which is on right now, which we kind of muted down a bit. But basically, let's go to that station there. What's nice about this is that it'll pop up on whichever frequency receives and override this radio. So you can be listening to your favorite broadcast station, and if you're in contact with somebody in your group and you got a priority message, it'll switch over to that immediately, which is quite nice for this function. I'm going to get out of that. The B band, you can set it to have the modem on the B radio only, and when you do that, you won't be able to hear regular traffic on the B radio, only APRS modem traffic, as this has a GPS in it. Let's get to the GPS menu. The This will give you a heads-up display to the received stations that you have, and you can choose to show your range, your location. You can make a drop point. You can make a point 1, point 2. You can do a variety of different points here with the navigation panel. And if we do function and 0, we get our station list, which we can see our list of stations that we've received and the date that we received it at. You can go into them. You can talk. You can see different mileages and all this other kind of information that comes from Aprs messaging, which is quite nice. You can also send messages with this by going to group message here. You can send message to, message from, and it's quite a lot of fun. There's a variety of different programs out there where you could send messages to radio, or you can send a message to a radio tower. And in this case, most radio towers are set in America to 144.390. That's a common frequency. You can use other frequencies if you want, but typically this is the gentleman's agreement. And you can send messages on this frequency into a tower, and the tower will report it either to the internet or to another tower that's connected to the internet through an iGate. And what that means is basically you can report your position to people on the internet if they look it up on aprs.fi via your call sign, whichever you want to choose to fill out with the radio like this. So it's quite useful in search and rescue, or just if you're hiking in the backcountry and if you're able to hit a tower that's active. That's the caveat. So this doesn't always work 100% of the time. Now, going back to the messaging, you can send a message into that tower on the internet, and if you sign up to different services, you can actually text message cell phones that opt into it, which is quite interesting because you can send messages back and forth, and it's quite a nice way to have a redundancy or a backup option that could work. It doesn't mean it's always going to work, but it could work in a emergency situation where your cell phone can't make it, but this will make it. Now, going back to the digital side of things with the digital modes on here, the digital mode, as you heard before, it's a little bit of robotic, so it's a little bit hard to understand, but in theory, it goes a little bit further out, but when it goes out of range, it turns into a robotic garbled mess. I'm sure you've heard of that in your cell phone. Basically, that's what happens with this when it fails to decode it. Now, there's no encryption with that digital message. You can't encrypt messages with this. You can only send digital messages or digital information. You don't necessarily have to send a vocal information. You can just key up your PTT and it'll send your GPS location if you have that enabled on your radio, which is quite nice. So a little heads-up display will pop up on here, and you'll see where the other person with the Fusion C4FM radio is if they have GPS enabled, if it's correctly enabled too at that. So it's quite nice to have a layer of privacy is what I'm getting at with the digital mode on here. So this does both analog and digital, which is quite nice. Now, some final thoughts on the FT1D and the FT1XD. It does take a while for this to receive the GPS signal, and the XD actually does a good job of latching onto those GPS satellites a little bit quicker. Now, obviously, things like being here, for example, underneath the house here, the roof, right? You're not going to be able to receive very well GPS signals, and that stands to reason for most GPS things. But let's go to display here in the menu section, and we'll go to GPS info, and it'll give you a graph here. So we're just locked onto just a couple satellites here. So you can see where you're locked in with the satellites here, which is nice to actually be able to see that. To access different menus and band scopes and things like that, you can hold down display here and it'll get to your different menus. And they're organized in a somewhat logical manner. It takes some time to kind of get used to it. Your texting, receiving modes, your digital. So, for example, your digital, as we mentioned before, you can have SWL type, location. You can scroll down and see which mode you want. You can do, again, the AMS mode. This is kind of a little bit faulty on the FT1D. I'm not sure if they've really ever fixed it per se, but that's that one with the bar on the side. You can do audio. You can change your audio if you want. Do AF dual. That's that dual band receiving, or that receiving option with the radio and the two A and B radios engaged. You can engage that and disengage that here in the menu. The menu is very deep. You can do signaling for your tones, DTMF codes, tones for the getting into the repeater. You have wires X, your group management, your APS configuration, your SD card option, which is another option I want to get into. Here, it shows you, your group format. You can format your card. You can back up your card. In fact, we're going to do our backup right now. So we're going to write to the SD card right now. Click OK. And it will write to our SD card. So right now you see it's blinking, it's writing. So it's going to take a moment to write because it's a lot of data. But basically you can write to your SD card from here. I can pop this out, pop it in the other radio. See, it says completed, and now I can update my other radio, the FT1XT, with its SD card slot on the side as well. So that makes this an excellent field radio in my opinion, because you can program these front panel on the fly, and you can send out to the people who are not as tech savvy in the field, and that makes a big difference in terms of saving time for setup and prep. So these are perfectly fine radios for that. Now the only problem I have with them being in the field is obviously they're only IPX4 rated, meaning you can't dunk these in the water. You can have them in the rain, which is fine. The other caveat that I found from using these after almost 10 years, these radios, when you go to a high enough elevation, the pressure difference and the moisture content will kind of fog up the screen sometimes when you're on the summits. So that is an issue. But for a radio that was released back, I think in 2011, 2012, if I'm not mistaken, right around the 2010s, perhaps, these are fine enough radios, and they've been working pretty well. And they started off that line of the FT2D, which has the touchscreen, the FT3D, the 4D, and now they have the 5DR out now. So this is the first jump into a digital and analog ham radio. And I think it was a really good jump into it, because these are the most rugged ones out of that lineup, in my opinion. The other ones have a touchscreen. They don't have a DTMF keypad. And if you're in the field and you drop that on a screen, you're shit out of luck, basically. So these, in my mind, would be the rugged option. They don't make them anymore, which is unfortunate. It's very hard to actually find the FT1XT. So these are pretty hard to find on the used market. You mainly see the FT1Ds on there, which is a fine enough radio. You just have to deal with the older GPS technology that doesn't lock on as much. But overall, it's definitely a good investment on the radio. One thing to note, if you're going to digitally program these radios on a computer, you probably would have to get a cable of some sort, data cable, to do that. And they used to sell it with the box. I remember when I brought this brand new, it came with the data cable. Most of these on the used market will probably not come with that data cable. So it'll make it a pretty hard way to program radios for you if you don't have that data cable. So one thing to note. Overall, it's a fantastic radio. It's been with me on trail building. It's been with me on rescues. It's been with me on camping and hiking excursions. So I would definitely recommend this as a entry-level and advanced-level radio for anybody who's interested in the ham radio hobby. This is a really good radio. Unfortunately, they don't make this type of radio, this format with the keypad and the screen on here anymore. They're all into the touchscreen ones, but it'd be nice to see them bring back a ruggedized version of this. Maybe a quad bander like the VX8DR would be nice in conjunction with this, with a built-in GPS module. That kind of new update would be a good idea for this radio. And that's all I have to say about the Yaesu FT1D or the FT1XT. Thank you for watching, and enjoy your day.